Hey everyone, welcome to Hub and Spoke, a storytelling platform produced by the J. Hurt Hub for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Davidson College. Through these conversations, we hope to inspire and connect the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs leading lives of leadership and service. Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Hub and Spoke. I'm Liz Smith-Brigham, Davidson class of 04, and the director of the J. Hurt Hub for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at Davidson. I'm so excited to welcome Michelle Lim Warner to the program today. I'm going to give a little bit of background on Michelle, and then we're going to just dig right into the questions as we always do. Michelle is a co-founder and CEO of DCANTER, an innovative, tech-driven, customer-focused wine, lifestyle, and retail company. DCANTER specializes in a global selection of artisanal wines from small production and family-run wineries, as well as wine education for the curious Winderluster. I love that. We make wine buying simple, fun, personalized, and convenient, whether at the wine boutique, online, with on-demand delivery, or through our one-of-a-kind wine concierge service. Prior to venturing into the wine industry, Michelle established her career in healthcare, serving most recently as a division director in the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, Innovation Center. There, she was responsible for leading a team that designed and tested payment and service delivery innovations in healthcare that were aimed at reducing costs and improving care quality for Medicare beneficiaries. She managed more than $100 million in federal investments across these innovations, including managing large-scale healthcare information technology projects aimed at assessing healthcare quality improvement. In addition to her deep wine knowledge, she is well-versed in health information technology, payment reform, quality of care, public health, and workforce development. Michelle has a BA in medical humanities from Davidson College and a master's of public health from the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Liz.
So great to finally be having this conversation with you as well. I should have mentioned in your bio that you have been a wonderful mentor to so many students as part of the Nisbet Venture Fund competition that we have here at the Hurt Hub, and just in general for anybody that has reached out to you. So thank you for that.
Of course. I always like to give back to Davidson when I can. It's a school that I really gained a lot from. So
wonderful. And we're going to start there, which is great. So thank you for that segue. So sure. I want to, what we always start off this show is learning more about your journey. So if you could just walk us through from Davidson until today, but really kind of stopping off at some of those major decision points along that journey. And then we might dig into those decisions a little bit.
How long do we have?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I became a freshman in 1998, dating myself now, at Davidson. And I knew that Davidson was the school I wanted to go to because it had three things that I really wanted. One was a bench, the second a tree, and then the lake. It was just such a beautiful campus that I fell in love as soon as I visited it. And of course, it didn't hurt that it had a wonderful pre-medicine program and just professors. When I spoke with them and when I spoke to the other students during my visit, it just felt like a place where that I could call home for the next 4 years of my life. And so I was so ecstatic when I got that acceptance letter. And I did pursue pre-med until I hit organic chemistry.
Not an uncommon comment, I think there.
Yeah. And then I made a pivot.
Yeah.
No, but actually it was a ethics course on law and medicine. I think that was the title of it, with Dr. Rosemary Tong, who taught for about a couple of years while I was there at Davidson. And that was really the first time that I thought about the intersection of law and medicine, and sort of the gray areas that come with decision making when it comes to treating patients. And so I would say that was really the biggest pivot in my career there at Davidson, was her class. Because that's when I made the switch from being a biology major and doing pre-med to exploring creating my own major through the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies. And I landed with medical humanities as or bioethics as my major. It was a new field at the time, and it was exciting for me to be able to create something that not very many people had created. It's kind of making up as we went along. And that was really a wonderful aspect about Davidson that allowed its students to be able to create and be creative about their studies. So that's kind of what else can I share? I also went abroad, and that was another wonderful thing about the college. I was able to explore other cultures, other worlds that were not familiar to me. I'm an immigrant from the Philippines, but I grew up in a very, very small town in Delaware. So not a lot of things going on there, especially in the early 90s. Now there's many things in this particular area of Delaware, Bethany Beach, Delaware. So there's, a lot more development and things. But when I was growing up, there's cornfield after cornfield after cornfield, and also chicken. So it was just exciting to be able to, visit and live in India. I did the Davidson India study abroad program. I did an immersive course with Davidson in Mexico. And then I also, in between my junior and senior years, I decided to not work so hard and take a photography trip in Italy, also facilitated by a Davidson program. It wasn't Davidson specifically, but I did it through the study abroad office there at Davidson. So I had an incredible 4 years while I was there. I met my husband. So I guess that is also a life-changing experience. I'm married to a Davidson alum who is also my partner in business.
Great. So let's kind of start there. So after Davidson, maybe kind of fill in some gaps of the decision to go and get a master's, and then all the work that you did kind of in the Medicare space. And then this pivot into one. I'm very, you talked about a pivot already, but let's kind of just fill in that story a little bit more.
All right. Well, so right after Davidson, I wanted to see what bioethics was really all about. After all, I created this major. And I wanted to have a career in it, at least I thought. And my first job was with the American Medical Association in Chicago. And I worked for the Center for Medical Ethics there. And that was really the place where I discovered healthcare policy. Wanting to make an impact. I thought about still going to medical school, but in the end, what I realized for myself is that I wanted to have a bigger impact in the world, to help improve health and wellness and care for a broader group of people, communities, eventually the country. I don't have very small ambitions. And practicing medicine, at least at the time, I thought, I wanted more than just individual one-on-one patient care, which is what a physician would do. It wasn't later that I discovered that if you were a physician, you could actually move into the healthcare policy world or bioethics. But that first job with the American Medical Association helped me to understand what was happening with healthcare in the United States. And having been an immigrant, not really having a lot of access to care, being on Medicaid, like things like this. I didn't really know about that when I was a young girl, right? And when I learned about all the challenges that we were facing in our American healthcare system, I wanted to be a part of helping to make it better. And so after Chicago, I mean, the only reason why I really left there was because it was way too cold.
Oh, I know. Yes, I lived there for many years as well. So I feel you.
I mean, why can't the trains just be underground in the
Right.
winter?
Yep.
So also, I'm an East Coast girl in the end. I missed being near my mom. So she's the two of us here in the U.S. And so I wanted to be closer to her. She was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. And another Davidson alum, also a Center for Interdisciplinary Studies major and friend of mine, had told me about a job opportunity here in DC. And I applied for it and I got it. And it was with the George Washington University. They had like a little project about health insurance reform. And it was a 2-person office, me and Sandy Foote, who was the director of that project. And it was incredible being in a small setting like that, because I got to do so many things at such a young age. I would interview leaders of healthcare, governors, leaders of in government, all to create a legislation that would improve chronic care for Medicare beneficiaries. And then that's when I discovered Medicare, was when I moved there into that job. So a lot of my journey is really about discovery and trying new things and learning about them, and then just continuing to kind of follow my interests. And eventually, through that health insurance reform project, because information technology is a big part of that. This was during the time when there was a big push during the Bush administration to make all medical records in the United States electronically available, so that we could facilitate interoperability of information and therefore also take better care of patients. And Medicare, being the biggest payer of healthcare in the United States, needed to take a big role in that transformation. Medicare beneficiaries see upwards of 9 different doctors because they have lots of chronic conditions, depression, diabetes, heart disease, not to mention depression and mental health challenges. Often back then, paper-based medical records, every medical record was just siloed in that particular physician's office or hospital. And being able to put those records in an electronic manner, really helped to facilitate better care. And so I really loved, the aspect of through technology being able to advance care for people that were vulnerable and really needed help. And through that, I ended up working for a consulting company, Booz Allen Hamilton. And that's where I learned how to prepare PowerPoints. You can never, presentation skills are so important, especially as an entrepreneur, when you're pitching investors, pitching customers, pitching your business partner. Even though he's my husband, I still have to pitch him on things. And that's when I really had a greater sense of research and creating solutions for problems, because our clients, which were mostly government clients, also Medicare at the time. I mean, basically Medicare has been in my since I got that second job here in DC. Learning how to create solutions and asking the questions, figuring out what the right questions are to begin with to ask, and then being able to present them to clients really helped me then in my next job, which was pitching the governors of the United States on accelerating projects that would allow for this healthcare information interoperability. So we were working with, at the time, as transitioned to the National Governors Association, and my job was basically the health information technology specialist for the NGA, and working with states to develop laws that would allow for that interoperability, from privacy and security questions to broadband access to basically anything and everything that related to health IT. And then I eventually did my own consulting for a bit, because I wanted to work more directly with certain states on population health and health information technology. And through that, I met the person who would give me the opportunity of my life, which was to work for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services under the Obama administration. I worked to help implement the Affordable Care Act, and specifically within that was a provision that created an innovation hub in a bureaucracy. It funded CMS with $10 billion and 10 years to spend that $10 billion seeding innovation in healthcare, and specifically reforming the way that we paid healthcare providers, so that they moved away from a volume-driven model, which is fee-for-service, into a value-based model, which actually put in outcomes, expectations, and better patient care for Medicare beneficiaries. And so that job is how I learned about entrepreneurship. Because, in the 90s and early 2000s, entrepreneurship was not really a big emphasis. I mean, of course, there was business school and people that owned their businesses, but you didn't really learn about entrepreneurship until now. It's a big thing. Yeah. And so creating financial models, new ways, I mean, they're basically business models. How do we move people away from their typical revenue generation, what they've been used to, and how they would have developed revenue or generate revenue for their businesses, to one that now we're giving them either a lump sum in order for them to actually, in which case they'd have to manage the cost underneath that lump sum, and meet expectations and save Medicare money, to ensuring that included as part of that patient care was at the center of it, because sometimes the right thing isn't always revenue generating. Right. Yep. So we needed to make revenue generation and profitability a part of putting the patient in the center of that. So what were the business models that enabled that? And so, I learned all about market. It was basically my business school equivalent. You're learning about marketing, you're learning about accounting, financial models, strategy, operations, down to, health and information technology, of course, still a big part of that. And through that, I said, I feel like I've reached the top of where I want to be. I don't want to move into, health insurance. I don't want to move into the provider setting. I wanted to continue the entrepreneurship side that really gave me fuel. I was like, I don't know, it like lit me up. Being creative and building something out of nothing. Now, granted, I had $10 billion to spend in that right there. So I didn't know what the heck I was thinking, building something from nothing with literally no money. But I did. And when my husband and I started talking about starting a business together, we knew that we really enjoy wine. He loves to cook. I'm not a very good cook. I know how to cook, but I prefer not to. So my job was really just to open whatever bottle of wine would pair well with the meal. Or sometimes it didn't even pair well because I knew nothing about wine. It enjoyed it, and maybe it was my studies in Italy when doing that photography trip. And my husband also did a Davidson abroad program. He was in Germany, which is also an incredible wine region, that we kind of, got exposure to that and romanticized a great deal about being in the wine industry. Oh, we get to travel. Oh, we get to, drink wine and taste wine. Little did we know that it's really about moving product from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
But, almost 9 years later, we're still here, and I'm really proud of us.
No, that's great. It's interesting. Some of what you talked about studying abroad is similar. We had Jeff, Tony Dandel, and Jamie Brown, who own a restaurant group here in Charlotte, on Hub and Spoke. Both of them Davidson alumni as well, and they talked a lot about packing up and hitting the road and going abroad, and how those types of cultural immersion experiences really were almost a catalyst, right, for them to think differently about what they might do. Yeah. I'm curious to go in, what you mentioned that was really interesting to me is that you felt like you hit the pinnacle of where you were going to get to in the healthcare world. And I think a lot of Davidson students, maybe even some Davidson alums, are always, I want to achieve more. I want to get to the next level, and saying like, no, I've reached it, is a really challenging thing to be able to be that self-reflective on. And so I'm curious if you could just dig into that a little bit more. And
Sure.
You said, no, this is the time that I'm going to pivot.
So for me, I get this feeling, like this excitement. Some people call it fire or passion. And I just felt that about entrepreneurship when I looked at the things that really made me excited, the things that I was doing. It was being creative, solving a problem, and then seeing it come to fruition, and so I guess I just, when I looked around at the other options, because at the end of a administration, you kind of go to the next thing, especially if I wasn't necessarily political hire, but I was hired, in that administration. And at this point, we knew that we were going to be transitioning to probably a Republican president, because we had already been 2 administrations under a Democrat presidency. And so I think when I was looking at the various options before me as to what I would do next, I wasn't excited about them. It's like I had already seen it. I've already been there. I'd done that. And it wasn't really about the money, because or the position, because you could pursue, like, I want more, I want to achieve higher based on like position or based on, your salary. But for me, it was really about what allowed me as a person to grow. How could I grow mentally, emotionally, and gain more experience, broaden my horizons a little bit. And for me, it was really being able to leverage the skills that I'd learned through my 12, 13 years in healthcare, and put that into a new subject. And that was running a business. And it wasn't even really about wine. It was about creating a business. And so I guess, kind of in the same way, when I pivoted from pre-med to moving into bioethics, like those kinds of questions, those gray areas, I was just so curious about them, and I wanted to help solve those problems, and try to come out with, if not a black and white answer, something closer to what would help people move forward. And a lot of those really tough questions in patient care. And so I guess it's really just, what gives you fuel and fire to grow as a human being, as a person.
Yeah, I love that. So now let's go back 9 years, and that initial to say, okay, we're going to start a wine business. We're going to start a business. We're going to start a wine business. We're going to start a brick and mortar business. When you're coming from healthcare IT that's very well funded and in boardrooms with governors of states, to a much more hyper localized initially, type of environment. Can you just talk a little bit about that experience and those decisions and how you went about educating yourself, I guess, to be most successful in those choices?
I was going to say, I think we were just crazy. I think you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to, do something this risky.
Yeah.
We had healthcare, we had salaries, we had PTO, we had, benefits and things like that. And our life was good. We had just bought a house. I mean, we were nuts, doing this. But I think, our education, both of us being Davidson students, to prepare for it, we investigated. We did research. My husband went to business school at the University of Maryland, Smith School of Business, and he, totally MBA'd it. Mm-hmm. And I was his murder board. So in healthcare, we would, when you're pitching, you have a group of people that you're telling your pitch to, and they try to find every single thing that's wrong with it. We just try to be eyes wide open. We had our market analysis. We knew what our service offerings were going to be, how we were going to be different from our competitors. I mean, there is probably 20 different alcohol beverage companies or retailers within a mile radius of us, from liquor stores to specialty wine stores to grocery stores. How was DCANTER, our business, going to stand apart from everybody else? And through our research, and also because we were our own consumers, right? We were trying to solve a problem for us as consumers of wine. And that was, we wanted exposure to smaller producers and kind of off the beaten path regions of the world and varieties. We really loved the discovery of grapes we've never heard of from places in the world we never even thought made wine, because we didn't know much. And then the second was wine education. We did not, we couldn't find a place that provided wine education at the time without having to go through certification and spending, thousands of dollars on being wine certified. And so we created it. We are, emphasis on small producers, family-run wineries, off the beaten path wine styles. I mean, we carry wines from Hungary, from Bulgaria, parts of Italy that, you wouldn't even think about, and varieties that are sometimes difficult to pronounce. But we did that. And we knew that the wine education piece was a really essential component to setting us apart from everyone else. And so, we incorporated that as part of the business model, is being able to offer wine classes to people who just wanted, a date night away and learn something new, or just doesn't have to be a date night, just with your pals to do something fun, and that's how DCANTER was born. And then through that, once we I actually call this space, our brick and mortar, as our laboratory of innovation, which is a term that I learned while working for the National Governors Association. States are laboratories of innovation for the nation, right? We learn through the innovations of states what we could then take as national policy. And so DCANTER, became our observation hub. We started to ask questions of our customers and what do they really enjoy about shopping here, or what else were they looking for? And I think a few times, early on, probably maybe in like a year into having our business open, a few customers had asked us, do you guys ship or deliver? And because they didn't live within the Capitol Hill neighborhood, which is where we lived, and we wanted to open our store in our neighborhood just for convenience purposes, but also we love our neighborhood, Capitol Hill. And when they asked that question, we were like, yes, we do deliver. We don't ship yet, but we deliver. And I knew that we didn't want to do yet another wine club. Again, it was always thinking about what set us apart from all of our other competitors. And at the time, there was a company, well, there is still a company, it's a public company now, Stitch Fix, which is personal styling for women. So you can, have a personal stylist and help you, get outfits based on your preferences and your budget. And I was like, why can't we do that for wine? I mean, wine out of all the types of retail goods is the hardest to purchase, right? Because you can't try it before you buy it, unlike clothing. Once you open that bottle, it's not like I can resell that to somebody else to try because you already drank it, parts of it. And so we basically created the concierge service as a personal wine shopping experience where a sommelier, a wine expert, will hand select wines based on your taste preferences as well as your budget. And that has been an incredible innovation for us. No one else really does that in the wine industry, as far as I'm aware, because it's very hard to do. It's very tailored to the individual. No box is the same for any of our concierge clients. And we, wanted to help wine lovers discover new things similar to us when we were starting off. But we had to learn it ourselves by, going to wine school and all this stuff. So the concierge service, the wine education at DCANTER, that really helped position us differently from our competitors. And why a brick and mortar? A lot of people are very scared about brick and mortars, but for us, we wanted to be revenue generating from day number one. And we were, because as soon as the doors were open, we had customers.
Right.
So that was really important to us to prove that we could do it and sell. Because once somebody's paying for your service, that means you've really got a business.
Yeah. I love a couple of things. I'll just pull out a few things. One of my lines that I say all the time is empathy is currency. And so this spirit of curiosity and every interaction with a customer or a potential customer is an opportunity for research and deepening your knowledge. And then that kicked off a major revenue resource for you, as well as a competitive differentiator, is just a fantastic story. So I love that. And then at the end, you said something, about product market fit is that sort of jargony term that we hear a lot, but for anybody listening, that was what Michelle was alluding to, is just saying, okay, if there's a willingness for somebody to come in your store and buy something, that you are solving a problem or a need that they have. So thank you for that. I know we're coming up on time a little bit here. So I'd love for you to just talk about, obviously we're this community that really is trying to foster feedback and challenging each other to get better and to do better over time. So are there certain things that you would like to leave with our listeners in the Davidson community that really pushes them to think differently?
Yeah, I, as a very ambitious woman, and in person, I was always looking to the next thing, But as I got older, I learned that the hardest thing to do really is to stick with something long enough to understand it and to know how to best improve it. And what I see, I think it's common as a young person, you're coming out of school, you're changing courses every semester, every year you're doing something new. And when you get into the real world, it's like, okay, you have a job and you're there. And day in and day out, you're doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. Maybe there's some change. Maybe there's a little bit of, something new. But oftentimes now I'm seeing a lot of young people who just stay in a job for a year or maybe 6 months, especially in the wine industry. We got a lot of turnover. And one of the things that I would challenge young people is, can you stick with something for at least 5 years and not get bored with it? How can you, it's kind of getting into that entrepreneurship aspect, because if you were to spend that much time and not, instead of worrying about what the next thing is, how can you make this, if you are in a situation that you're not really that excited about what you're working, well, how can you make it exciting? Because obviously that job that you're doing is still needed because you have that position, you have that job. And after 5 years is a good amount of time, because by the first 2 years, you're really learning how it works. And then you're maybe working on some projects that's going to take another 3 years before you can really see it through. So I think that's what I would say.
No, that's great. I think that's helpful. That's definitely the most unique answer we've gotten to that question thus far. And I think it's really important. It sometimes, and especially from an entrepreneur perspective, of knowing, given that, okay, whatever the data is now, 80 to 85% of new businesses fail, within those first 3 years. Like, how do you have that perseverance to be able to still think differently and think about how do you enrich yourself, whether, again, to your point, you're an entrepreneur building something inside of somebody else's organization, or you're starting something from scratch. So I think it's
exactly. I mean, I don't love everything that I'm doing. Running a business. There's things that are just boring and I'm not into doing, but I have to do them anyway.
Right.
And it's not like once you have your own business, it's very difficult just to jump ship. And of course there are out options or exit options. But you really have to see if they obviously, like, don't stay with a job or don't stay with something that really doesn't make you happy. But I find that, sticking with something and really trying to figure out if it's still of interest, and it still has, like, maybe my fire is not as big as it was at the beginning, right? Because it's always, something shiny and something new is what always drives us, right? But can we make that shiny and new thing last? Is it I'm excited about DCANTER's growth potential. And we have one brick and mortar shop, but we own 100% of it. And, I think that early on, like I was thinking about next thing. But right now we are actually creating a very strong foundation to build our business from, so that when that growth happens, we're really, really ready for it.
That's great. Could you just expand on that briefly a little bit of, like, how are you setting yourselves up for growth into the next chapter of whatever DCANTER looks like?
Yeah. So it's really building a lot of the infrastructure that's needed for growth. That includes our technology. So we've built proprietary technology to help make our curation process for our concierge service more efficient. We also have some delivery software that we've created to simplify the delivery process, and paying down your debts, right? Because we have a small business loan, and we've had some other loans that we took out in order to build off our technology. And about 8 months from now, we'll be finished with all our loans. We will be debt free. And so that will help us a tremendous deal to the next stage, whether it's another brick and mortar shop or expanding delivery services to other parts of the DC area.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. This was a very comprehensive overview of both, personal and professional choices and how Davidson really, I think, enriched that journey as well. So thank you so much for taking the time, Michelle.
Absolutely. I do want to give one shout out to Linda Erickson. I don't know if she is still there with Davidson Financial Aid. Without her, I would not be where I am today, because she really helped me find the resources to be able to afford my Davidson education. And yes, thank you, Linda. If you're listening to this podcast, I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. We will make sure that we'll get it to Linda. I'm not sure if she's still here, but we will find out, and we'll make sure that she's listening and she gets that special honor. So thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. It was
a
pleasure talking to you, Liz.
That's great. We'll see you at the Nisbet Venture Fund as well. Thank you for signing up again to be a mentor this year. Thanks to all of our listeners today on Hub and Spoke, or viewers. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, check us out, hurthub.davidson.edu, for all the great things that we have going on here at the Hurt Hub. Thanks again, Michelle. Take care.
Of course. My pleasure. Bye-bye.